Would you dare fall asleep on land that trembles more than 30,000 times a year? Most of us, hearing that, would pack a suitcase on the very first night. We're used to looking for solid ground beneath our feet, in both the literal and the figurative sense. We need stability, predictability, silence beneath the foundation of our home. But somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, there are people for whom the trembling of the earth isn't a reason for alarm. It's simply part of the morning. An ordinary, unremarkable morning. Here, far from any continent, almost 250,000 people wake up every day on land born of fire, and go on living the way their grandparents and great-grandparents lived before them. Without panic, without rushing, with a calm that feels almost superhuman. This is the Azores. 9 scraps of land scattered across an endless blue, sitting exactly where 3 of the planet's tectonic plates meet. A place where the Earth itself seems unable to decide who it belongs to, and so it keeps moving, breathing, living a life of its own. Here, volcanoes don't sleep quietly under a layer of ash somewhere in a geography textbook. Here, they are part of the kitchen. Quite literally, beneath these islands, molten rock still simmers, and the locals have learned to cook their food on it, as if on an enormous underground stove that the planet itself gave them as a gift. Here, black volcanic soil, born from hardened lava, feeds endless green pastures that stretch all the way to the horizon. Here, the grass grows so lush and thick, it's as if the earth is apologizing to people for all its tremors, and doing so with food. And every year, when the warmth returns, dozens of whale species appear off these shores. They pass by the islands as if this were the crossroads of the entire ocean, as if this is exactly where the paths of every living creature on the planet happen to cross. At the very edge of the world, where the map we're used to simply runs out, live people who have never truly tried to defeat nature. They didn't build walls against it. They didn't try to prove that humans are stronger than earth, water, and fire. Instead, they did something that seems far harder and far wiser. They learned to live alongside it, not in spite of it, together with it. And this is only the beginning of the story. To understand what it really means to live next to a force that can never be tamed, you have to be here at dawn, when the sun hasn't yet risen over the ocean and the air smells of salt and fog at the same time. Picture this: you're standing at the edge of a cliff. Below you, black rocks polished by thousands of years of waves. Ahead of you, endless water that your eyes can't reach the end of, because the nearest mainland is thousands of kilometers away in any direction. You're alone. Or rather, not quite alone. Standing beside you is someone who was born here, whose grandfather was born here, whose great-grandfather was born here. And for him, this is not exotic. This is simply home. Here is the most astonishing thing about the Azores. What feels like an extraordinary adventure to a traveler, living on an active volcano in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by whales and fog, is, for the locals, completely ordinary, everyday reality. They don't wake up each morning thinking, "How incredible that I live here." They simply live. They drink their morning coffee. They glance out the window to check whether there will be fog today. They walk to work past stone walls their great-grandfathers built out of hardened lava. It's exactly in this contrast, between the extremeness of the place and the calm of its people, that the true magic of these islands is born. Think about how we, living in big cities, react to even the smallest instability. The internet goes out for an hour, and the world feels like it's falling apart. A flight is delayed 30 minutes, and we're already writing angry reviews. But here, on land that physically moves beneath people's feet 30,000 times a year, People have learned to live with a far more serious kind of unpredictability, and they do it with remarkable dignity. Maybe it's because they don't try to control what cannot be controlled. Maybe that's exactly why they seem so calm, because once, many generations ago, their ancestors understood a simple truth. You cannot defeat the ocean. You cannot order a volcano to fall silent. The only thing left for a person on land like this is to learn to listen to it. And they learned. Every volcano on these islands is not just a mountain. It's a living story. Some of them erupted centuries ago and have since turned into peaceful green hills covered in pastures and flowers. Others still remind you of themselves. A faint smell of sulfur in the air, warm earth underfoot, steam rising from cracks in the rock. This is not a backdrop for tourists. It's the setting against which ordinary human life unfolds. Breakfasts, neighbors chatting, children laughing in the yard. The water here lives by its own rules too. The ocean surrounding the Azores is so rich with life that scientists call these waters among the most fertile in the entire North Atlantic. This is where the migration routes of the largest marine mammals cross, the very same creatures that are the biggest living beings ever to inhabit our planet. They appear here every spring, as if to remind us that this small archipelago in the middle of a boundless ocean is not some forgotten corner of the world, but its true center of gravity for life itself. And all of it, the volcanoes, the pastures, the whales, the fog, the cliffs, doesn't exist apart from the people. It exists together with them. Woven into a single unbroken story that has been continuing for centuries. That's why, the first time you step off a plane or a ferry onto these islands, you feel something strange. Not a tourist's excitement at spotting another landmark. Something deeper, the sense that you've entered a place where time moves differently, slower, more honestly, without rushing, without pretending, without the need to impress anyone. No one here is running anywhere. No one measures the value of a day by how many tasks got done. What matters more is hearing church bells ring through the morning fog, noticing how the color of the sky shifts before rain, recognizing a neighbor by their walk from a distance, because here, people really do know one another. But beneath this calm lies something far more complicated than it first appears. Because living on land that shakes 30,000 times a year takes more than simply wanting to. It has to be learned. The entire logic of everyday life has to be rebuilt. How you plan a meeting, how you choose your route, how you prepare for tomorrow when today can change in an instant. That's exactly what we'll talk about next. How nature here dictates every step a person takes, how the weather decides whether a meeting will happen, whether a plane will fly or stay grounded. Because the most astonishing thing about the Azores isn't that there are volcanoes and whales here. What's astonishing is how people learned to turn unpredictability into a way of life. How they stopped fearing what they cannot control, and instead found their own particular rhythm within it. And even deeper beneath the surface of this calm lies a force that keeps slowly, relentlessly, writing the next chapter of these islands' story. A force that never truly sleeps. And very soon, we'll find out what it really means to live somewhere the earth never sleeps. Not much time passes after arriving in the Azores before almost every traveler notices something strange. Here, people are rarely the ones who set the rhythm of their own day. Nature always makes the first move. Only afterward does a person decide how to respond. Picture this. You wake up under a clear blue sky. Sunlight fills the room with warmth, birds sing somewhere in the distance, and the day seems to promise perfection. You step outside, and within an hour, everything changes. Thick fog settles over the road so densely that the house next door dissolves into a white haze, as if it never existed. A few hours later, cold rain begins, and it will end just as suddenly by sunset. A single day here can hold everything at once. Clear skies in the morning, thick fog by noon, rain before evening. Locals simply call this an ordinary day, because to them, there's nothing unusual about it at all. Along steep black cliffs made of hardened lava, thick fog slowly creeps over ancient ferns. Around the next bend in the road, warm golden sunshine can suddenly vanish beneath heavy clouds rolling in fast from the ocean. Weather here doesn't change over hours, it changes in minutes. The people who live here have long grown used to this rhythm. Meetings, fishing trips, even travel between neighboring islands, all of it is frequently adjusted around the weather. So often, in fact, that it no longer surprises anyone. Changing plans because the wind shifted, because the clouds settled differently, because the sea turned rough. Here, that isn't the exception to the rule. It is the rule. Think about how different that is from the life we're used to. We fill our calendars weeks in advance, schedule meetings, plan trips months ahead. We get angry when something falls through because of rain. But here, people build their lives around a completely different principle. You can plan, but nature always reserves the right to have the final word. The salty wind that the ocean carries in almost every day reaches far deeper into the islands than you might expect. It settles on windows, works its way into metal joints, and quietly leaves rust beneath cars and on iron fences along the coast. Because of this, washing a car every week has become almost as routine here as drinking morning coffee. Homes near the shore are regularly coated with special waterproof paint. Wooden doors, window frames, and metal fittings all require constant upkeep to withstand the endless humidity and salty air. This isn't a one-time chore. It's a lasting, repeating ritual passed down from generation to generation, along with the house itself. But the weather doesn't only affect buildings and belongings. It has reshaped the way people think, how they perceive distance itself. A neighboring village just a few kilometers away can vanish completely behind a dense wall of fog. Vast volcanic craters and ancient tropical forests can shrink into barely visible silhouettes hidden behind low clouds. A world that was clearly visible that same morning can simply disappear from view by evening. That's why many islanders don't check a map before leaving home. Instead, they open a special app connected to a network of live cameras installed at harbors, airports, and mountain peaks across the archipelago. This lets people see, in real time, exactly what's happening on the road, in the harbor, or on the runway. Only after seeing with their own eyes that the way is clear do they decide whether to set out at all. There are mornings when the road appears to still be there, visible, in place. But no one can be certain whether the journey will actually begin today. When low clouds settle over the airport or strong winds sweep across the open ocean, flights and ferries are gradually delayed. The terminals grow more and more crowded. But there's no rush and no irritation. People simply sit and wait. Because here, everyone has long understood, the weather always has the final say. That kind of waiting no longer feels unusual. It has become a natural part of everyday life in the heart of the Atlantic Ocean. There's something remarkably human in this, the ability to accept what cannot be changed, without frustration, without inner resistance. In big cities, we tend to treat a flight delay as a personal insult, an injustice of fate. Here, people see it differently. If the sky has decided to wait, then we wait too. calmly, without drama. Perhaps it's because life alongside unpredictable nature teaches a very particular kind of patience. Not passive resignation, not giving up on plans altogether, but a wise understanding that some things matter more than a strict schedule. That sometimes the best choice is simply to sit down, drink a cup of coffee, and wait for the clouds to part on their own. This ability to wait without anxiety wasn't formed here in a single year, or even in a single generation. It was passed down from parents to children, along with stories of storms that kept boats docked for days, of fog that hid entire villages, of how important it is not to argue with the ocean, but simply to give it time. And while every eye is turned toward the sky, waiting for the clouds to lift and the wind to settle, deep underground, beneath the very feet of these same people, an entirely different force keeps slowly moving. It's invisible on the surface. It doesn't interrupt the morning coffee or a chat with a neighbor, but it never truly stops. And one day, it will make itself known again, continuing to write the next page in the story of these islands. If you ever find yourself here and your flight gets delayed for a few hours, try doing what the locals do. Don't reach for your phone to complain. Don't count the minutes. Just sit by the window, watch the fog through the glass, and let yourself feel, even for a moment, that same calm that has been passed down here from generation to generation. Because perhaps this very ability to wait without irritation is one of the most important lessons these small islands in the middle of a vast ocean can teach us. But weather and waiting are only one side of life here. Far more remarkable is what happens between people in the moments when nature forces them to stop. Because it's exactly in that forced pause, in that shared wait by a terminal window or in a local cafe, that something far more important than patience is born. Connection is born. That very connection between neighbors, friends, and complete strangers, which means far more on these islands than almost anywhere else. And that's exactly what we'll talk about next: the people, the silence that brings them together, and a spirit of community unlike anywhere else. If you were to ask a traveler what they remember most after their first morning in the Azores, many would give a surprising answer. Not the ocean, not the volcanic scenery visible from every window, but the silence. Church bells ring out through the morning fog, and the whole town seems to wake up in one slow, unhurried rhythm. From the distant hills comes the calling of cattle to one another. A milk truck quietly makes its way through the narrow streets. Car horns are almost never heard here, replaced instead by other familiar sounds that have accompanied island life for generations. On these islands, silence isn't emptiness. It's a way of life that people have carefully preserved for a very long time. Small neighborhood cafes gradually open their doors. People step into their favorite spot, order a strong coffee and a warm, sweet bun, and then settle in without any hurry. A fisherman talks about the day's catch. A farmer discusses the weather and the state of the pastures. The cafe owner smiles at familiar faces, greeting almost everyone by name. Here, a new day usually begins not with work, but with conversation. On islands with small populations, strangers rarely remain strangers for long. Locals have a deep word for this particular spirit, one that means genuine neighborly support and a real sense of community. When a storm knocks down a stone wall near someone's house, neighbors show up with their own tools to help rebuild it. When gardens reach harvest season, fresh fruits and vegetables are shared with nearby families before they're ever taken to market. Children grow up surrounded by familiar faces, often knowing the same people since early childhood. On an archipelago that regularly faces rough seas, strong winds, and the unpredictable whims of nature, This sense of connection has never been just a cultural tradition. It's how the community survives. Together. Think about how different this is from the way we usually live in big cities. We can live in the same building for years without ever learning our neighbor's name. We're used to solving problems alone, turning to professionals for help, keeping our personal space at arm's length. But here, on small patches of land in the middle of a vast ocean, people learned long ago a simple truth. Surviving alone is harder. Surviving together is easier. This spirit shows itself most strongly during a special festival, a tradition carefully preserved for centuries. Every year, families donate food to prepare large shared meals that are given out to everyone. The elderly, children, wealthy families, and those going through hard times all gather around the same table. This scene repeats year after year, quietly expressing one simple and profound idea. Here, on these islands in the middle of the Atlantic, no one should have to face hardship alone. Picture the scene. Long tables set up right in the street. People who barely greet each other on an ordinary day sit side by side, share the same food, laugh at the same jokes. No one asks how much money the person next to them has. No one keeps score of who brought more and who brought less. What matters here is something else entirely. Simply being present. Simply taking part. This tradition becomes even more understandable when you look at it through the lens of real island life. Powerful storms can cut off travel between islands. Rough seas can keep boats in port for days at a stretch. And in moments like these, the first people to offer help are rarely emergency responders. They're the neighbors living right next door. Perhaps this is where the true wonder of the Azores actually lies. Not in the fact that these islands were shaped by volcanoes and the Atlantic Ocean, but in the fact that people learned to depend on one another, building a life here over the course of many centuries. To sustain these small communities in the middle of the ocean, the people of the Azores had to find something more than simple mutual aid. They had to find a way to trust. Genuinely, without reservation, without fear of being deceived. Think about how rarely we truly trust strangers today. We check reviews before hiring someone. We install cameras by our front doors. We eye new neighbors with suspicion. But here, a front door can stay unlocked for years simply because there's no need for it to be locked. Everyone knows everyone else, and that knowledge isn't built on paperwork, but on decades of shared life. This kind of connection isn't formed in a single day. It's born from thousands of small moments. A borrowed cup of sugar, helping repair a roof after a storm. A simple, "How are you?" said in passing on the street. Spoken here not as a formality, but sincerely, with real interest in the answer. Children who grow up on these islands absorb this spirit from the earliest age. They watch their parents help neighbors without being asked, simply because they noticed a need. They learn to share their harvest before they even understand the word economy. They come to understand that a neighbor isn't just someone who lives nearby, but part of a large, invisible web of support that holds the island together even when the surrounding ocean turns rough. And perhaps that's exactly why the older generation here rarely complains of loneliness. Unlike in big cities, where elderly people often sit alone with their thoughts in crowded apartments, here grandparents are almost always surrounded by familiar faces. Someone drops by for coffee. Someone brings fresh bread. Someone simply sits down beside them on a bench by the sea to talk about nothing in particular and about everything at once. The silence we spoke of at the start of this section isn't the absence of sound. It's the absence of anxiety. It's the feeling that you don't have to prove anything, run anywhere, or pretend for anyone. Here, silence is filled with presence. The presence of people who know you, who will notice if something's wrong, who will come even if you never called. This spirit of community didn't appear by accident. It was forged over centuries by a harsh but fair school, the school of island life, where a neighbor's help could sometimes mean the difference between survival and disaster, where a storm could strip a family of its harvest in a single night, and a neighbor could restore hope in a single morning, bringing whatever little they had left. And today, centuries later, that same spirit still lives on. In small cafes in the morning, in shared meals during festivals, in the simple gesture of giving what you have to someone who needs it more. But connection between people is only one part of this island story. There's another connection, no less remarkable. The connection between people and the very land that feeds them. Land that still holds heat deep beneath its surface. Land that has become not just a home, but a true source of life in the most literal sense of the word. That's exactly what we'll talk about next. How volcanic earth became part of everyday cooking, how family meals are born from fire, and what secrets the lakes inside ancient volcanic craters still hold. On the Azores, some lunches begin 6 hours before they're ever served, and it has nothing to do with a complicated recipe or slow simmering on a stovetop. It's because the stove these people use isn't in the kitchen at all. It's deep underground. Early in the morning, residents of a small town bring large cast iron pots filled with meat, sausages, potatoes, carrots, cabbage, and other vegetables to a public cooking site. This isn't a festive ritual staged for tourists. It's an ordinary routine, repeated week after week for many generations. After sealing the lids, they lower the pots into special steaming pits dug straight into the ground and cover them with soil. No fire needed, no charcoal required, just earth that is naturally hot enough on its own to cook an entire meal. 6 hours later, the famous dish is fully cooked, prepared using nothing but the natural heat rising from deep within the planet. Stop for a second and think about how remarkable this is. We're used to thinking of volcanoes as a source of danger, destruction, disaster. But here, on these islands, a volcano became a source of lunch. A daily, ordinary family lunch, cooking itself while people go about their business, working, walking, chatting with neighbors. Every weekend, many local families still gather around a meal cooked by the volcano beneath their feet, continuing a custom handed down from one generation to the next. No advertising, no show for visitors, just a way of life inherited from their ancestors. If this town shows how people learned to put the Earth's heat to good use, another place on the islands is a reminder that nature still holds secrets that science alone can't fully explain. Inside the vast crater of an ancient volcano lie 2 lakes side by side. And remarkably, each one is a completely different color. One a deep blue, the other a deep green. They sit so close together, it seems their waters should blend, but they never do. According to local legend, the 2 lakes were formed from the tears of a princess and a shepherd, whose love could never be fulfilled. As the story goes, their tears remained forever separated, one blue lake, one green lake, destined never to merge into one. From a scientific point of view, the explanation is different. The color difference comes from the depth of the lakes, the underwater vegetation, and the particular way light refracts through the water. 2 completely different explanations for the same phenomenon, and each, in its own way, has helped make this one of the most remarkable landscapes in the whole Atlantic. Science explains how it works, legend explains why it matters, And perhaps it's exactly this combination that creates the real magic of the place, where fact and feeling don't argue with each other, but complete one another. Imagine standing on a viewpoint above this crater early in the morning, while the fog hasn't yet lifted. Below, through the thinning mist, the two lakes gradually come into view. First just faint outlines, then clearer and clearer, until finally both colors are visible at once. In that moment, it's hard not to believe, at least a little, in the legend of the princess and the shepherd. Because some things are simply too beautiful to explain with physics alone. But life on a volcanic island was never limited to beautiful scenery. The smell of sulfur drifting through the air is something the locals have long grown accustomed to. Year-round humidity, which often exceeds 80%, means that in many homes, dehumidifiers run almost around the clock, protecting clothing, wooden furniture, and walls from mold. This isn't considered anything unusual. It's simply part of everyday life on land that still holds heat deep beneath the rocks. What's truly remarkable is that the people of the Azores have never treated these inconveniences as the price they pay for living here. Instead, they see them as part of the gift the volcanoes left behind. That same geothermal energy warms the island's natural hot springs, provides renewable power, and, most importantly, created the fertile volcanic soil that has fed generations of islanders for centuries. Think of it this way. What feels like an inconvenience, the humidity, the smell of sulfur, the constant upkeep a home requires, is actually a side effect of the very same force that makes this land so fertile, so alive, so generous. You can't have one without the other. You can't take only the pastures and leave behind only the warmth of the springs while rejecting the humidity and the sulfur smell. Here, everything is connected, and people understand that, accept it, and even find a kind of harmony within it. The force that once created these volcanoes now nourishes green pastures, blooming gardens, and the lives of the people who call these islands home. And from that very volcanic soil, one of the most unusual agricultural landscapes in all of Europe was born. Picture a farmer stepping out of his house every morning, knowing that the ground beneath his feet was once molten lava. He doesn't think of it as a threat. He thinks of it as the reason his vegetables grow so large, his cheese tastes so rich, his grapes turn out so special. To him, the volcano isn't a destroyer. It's a quiet, invisible helper working around the clock deep underground. There's a particular philosophy here in how people relate to the forces of nature, not as an enemy to be defeated, not as a threat to be guarded against at any cost, but as a partner you have to learn to negotiate with, a partner that is harsh, unpredictable, sometimes inconvenient, but incredibly generous to those who know how to listen. It's exactly this philosophy, the ability to see a gift where others see only hardship, that became the foundation for one of the most astonishing examples of human labor and patience anywhere in the archipelago. It's the story of an island where people took the most unwelcoming, most rock-covered land, blanketed in hardened lava, and turned it into a place where grapes grow, grapes used to make a wine that was once served at the table of the Russian tsars. How exactly a handful of people managed to turn black stone fields, swept by salty winds, into one of the most recognizable landscapes in all of Europe, a landscape now recognized as a true treasure of humanity, that's what we'll talk about in the next part. When travelers first arrive on Pico Island, it's almost impossible to look away from the massive mountain that towers over the entire archipelago. It rises more than 2,300 meters above the Atlantic Ocean, and no matter where you stand, at the harbor, in a field, along the shore, its peak is always somewhere nearby, quietly shaping the island's climate and the lives of the people who live there. But the most astonishing thing on Pico isn't found on the mountain itself. It lies at its base, where people created one of the most unusual landscapes in all of Europe. Instead of familiar fertile fields, Pico's coastline is covered by an endless network of black basalt stone walls stretching all the way to the sea. The locals call them by a special name. Seen from above, thousands of small stone enclosures fit together like an enormous mosaic spread across lava that hardened centuries ago. These walls were never built to divide the land. They shield the grapevines from salty Atlantic winds while trapping the heat the volcanic rock absorbs during the day. After sunset, that stored heat is slowly released, creating a stable, gentle microclimate that lets grapevines take root in a place that would otherwise seem impossible to grow anything in. Stop and picture these people, many generations ago, standing in the middle of a black, lifeless, sun-scorched stone field. Not a trace of fertile soil, only sharp volcanic rocks, salty wind, and endless ocean all around. Most of us, seeing land like that, would simply move on and look elsewhere. But they stayed, and they began, stone by stone, building something no one before them had ever attempted on this scale. Even after nature had been gently tamed this way, growing grapes on Pico was never easy. Every harvest season, vineyard workers remove sharp volcanic rocks by hand, then spend hours bent over dark lava fields, tending to each individual vine. In summer, heat rises off the black stone, while salty ocean winds continue sweeping over the low stone walls. Every single grapevine on Pico is the result of years of determined human effort, not a gift that nature simply handed over. That patience was eventually rewarded. From land covered in volcanic rock, battered by ocean winds and salty sea air, the people of Pico created a volcanic wine that was once served at the table of the Russian tsars. Think about that. A small island in the middle of the Atlantic, a tiny community of farmers, and wine from their cellars turned out good enough to cross an entire continent and land on an imperial table. Today, the entire vineyard landscape of Pico Island is recognized as a World Heritage Site. This recognition honors not only the vineyards themselves, but the remarkable way people adapted to an environment that once seemed completely unlivable. But Pico is far more than just its vineyards. Leave the black volcanic coastline behind and look toward the green hills above, and an entirely different landscape opens up. If every small plot of land at the foot of the mountain is carefully devoted to grapevines, then the broad hillsides tell the story of a completely different way of life, one that has quietly sustained the island for generations. This time, the main characters are no longer the vines. They're the herds of cattle peacefully grazing across Pico's rolling green hills. When most people think of volcanoes, they picture glowing lava, ash, and barren mountainsides. But in the middle of the Atlantic, the volcanoes of the Azores tell a completely different story. Their defining color is green. Few would expect an archipelago born from violent volcanic eruptions to become one of Portugal's most important dairy-producing regions. Mineral-rich volcanic soil, abundant rainfall, and a mild climate have turned the hillsides into lush green pastures that stay green almost all year round. Those same natural conditions also nourish the hydrangea hedges that line the mountain roads. Every summer, sweeping bands of blue, purple, and white blossoms blanket the hillsides, becoming one of the most recognizable features of the Azorean landscape. On several islands in the archipelago, dairy cows even outnumber the people. While morning mist still blankets the hills, dairy farmers have already begun their day. They drive along narrow country roads, searching for cattle grazing across open pastures. On many farms, mobile milking machines are brought directly to the fields instead of moving the entire herd back to a central barn. After milking, the cows simply returned to grazing on hillsides overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. The pastures themselves are never used continuously. When one field needs time to recover, the herd is moved to another area. As a result, each working day changes along with the weather and the natural growth of the grass. On the Azores, nature doesn't adapt to people. People are the ones who have learned to adapt to nature. By the end of the morning, fresh milk is delivered to local dairy cooperatives, where it's turned into butter and various kinds of cheese. The most famous of these has become one of the great points of pride for the archipelago. But the true value of dairy farming in the Azores goes far beyond just cheese. For generations, these green pastures have supported countless families and formed the foundation of one of the archipelago's most important industries. Eventually, the green fields come to an end at the edge of towering sea cliffs. Beyond them lies the deep blue Atlantic Ocean. If volcanic soil gave rise to the pastures that sustain life on land, the ocean is about to reveal an even more extraordinary source of life. Just a few nautical miles offshore, the largest animals ever to live on Earth pass through these waters every year. Here, beyond the green slopes clinging to the cliffs, an entirely different world unfolds beneath the white-capped waves of the Atlantic. Everything we've explored on land is, in fact, just the tip of a vast underwater plateau. Powerful ocean currents, crossing the Atlantic and colliding with underwater mountain slopes, push cold, nutrient-rich water up from the depths. This constant upwelling has created one of the most biologically productive marine ecosystems in the entire North Atlantic. A third of all whale and dolphin species on Earth have been recorded in these waters. Every spring and summer, blue whales, sperm whales, and many species of dolphins travel thousands of miles across the ocean before reaching these islands. Following them come blue sharks, sea turtles, and countless seabirds. Children who grow up on these islands grow up with the scent and taste of the sea. Their first swimming lessons often take place in natural saltwater pools formed by ancient lava flows along the coastline. For many islanders, the ocean isn't simply something to admire. It's part of childhood itself. As they grow older, that connection follows them further out to sea. Every whale season, small boats leave the harbors at first light. The people at the helm are no longer hunters, as they were decades ago. Today, they're guides, leading visitors to watch the very whales that migrate past the islands. Creatures once hunted have become the livelihood of many local families. But that shift didn't happen on its own. To protect the ocean that had sustained them for centuries, the people of the Azores made an extraordinarily difficult decision. They ended whaling. It had been a profession that supported many coastal communities for a long time, leaving a lasting mark on the island's history. From the moment of that decision onward, the relationship between the people of the Azores and the giants of the Atlantic entered an entirely new chapter. After whaling came to an end, the islanders began to look at their forests in a new light. The boundary between the coastline and the fog-covered valleys marks the entrance to a far older chapter of Earth's history. Here stands a laurel forest, an ecosystem that once spread across much of southern Europe and North Africa millions of years ago. Today, it has vanished entirely from the mainland. But here, the isolation of the Atlantic Ocean became an unexpected fortress, preserving some of the last surviving subtropical old-growth forests on Earth. In these extensive protected forests, when a powerful storm brings down an ancient tree across a trail, no one shows up with chainsaws to clear it away. People simply step over it or find another way around. The fallen tree is deliberately left in place, so its decaying trunk can continue providing shelter for the local bat, the only native land mammal found on these islands. Only after nightfall does the silence of the day begin to fade. Sharp, wild calls echo across the cliffs as seabirds return to their nesting grounds. Their voices drift through the forests and along the rocky coastline, reminding every visitor that human beings are only passing guests on this land. The people of the Azores choose to walk gently through nature. And yet, even that respect can't control everything. Deep beneath their feet, the earth is still quietly gathering forces that may one day break free again. But the most serious test for these islands doesn't come from underground at all. It comes from the sea, in the form of storms capable of cutting the archipelago off from the rest of the world for weeks at a time. And it's precisely when the ferries sit idle at the docks and the shelves in the shops go empty that the true character of the people here reveals itself. That, along with the young islanders who leave in search of a better life, and who one day return home, drawn by a longing that other languages simply have no word for, is what we'll talk about in the next and final part. In summer, the harbors of the Azores fill with cars waiting to board the ferries that connect the islands to one another. But when the winter winds arrive, storm warning flags go up, and heavy mooring lines hold the ferries firmly at the docks. From that point on, the islands have to rely on small propeller planes attempting to land on wind-battered runways. And when powerful storms last for weeks, even the sky closes off. The entire archipelago can find itself completely cut off from the rest of the world. Supermarket shelves empty quickly. Fresh vegetables, fruit, and milk disappear, because cargo ships can't reach the ports through the rough seas. The people of the Azores face these cold winter days with a calm shaped by generations of experience. There's no panic, no rush to stockpile supplies. Families keep dried fish, cured meats, and local cheese at home, which lets them remain self-sufficient for weeks if needed. Stop and think about that for a moment. We're used to seeing isolation as a threat, a disaster, something to be feared at any cost. But here, people have lived for centuries with the knowledge that one day the ocean will close off every way out again. And they treat it not with fear, but with quiet dignity. Because they know, this will pass. It always has before. But as more and more travelers discover these islands, places once protected by the ocean itself are beginning to face an entirely new kind of test. Will the isolation that has preserved the Azores for centuries still be enough to protect their identity? There are conversations that even native Azoreans have to listen to carefully in order to understand one another. Although they all live within the same archipelago, each island has developed its own distinct dialect. People from one island speak with such a heavy accent, often swallowing sounds, that they preserve traces of the language brought here by the earliest settlers many centuries ago. The differences are significant enough that when someone from one island speaks with someone from another, both often have to slow down before they can fully understand each other. Think about that paradox. People separated by only a few dozen kilometers of sea can speak so differently from one another that they have to deliberately adjust just to communicate. The ocean didn't just divide the land into islands. It allowed each island to grow its own, unrepeatable voice. And yet these language barriers quickly dissolve inside the small, family-run taverns tucked along narrow streets. Dinner in the Azores is rarely just about eating. People gather for hours around well-worn wooden tables, where meat has been slowly simmering in clay pots since morning, while fresh plates of seafood delicacies, prepared with garlic and butter, keep arriving at the table. Isolation has never divided the people of the Azores. On the contrary, it has drawn each island community even closer together, especially during the winter months. During the Feast of the Holy Spirit, entire villages donate food to prepare enormous pots of soup, given out free to anyone who passes by. On Terceira Island, that same community spirit comes alive during a traditional bull and rope festival. Villagers crowd onto wooden balconies, holding their breath as a powerful bull charges through the streets, restrained by a long rope. From unhurried conversations to long dinners around steaming clay pots and the cheers echoing from crowded balconies, the people of the Azores preserve their identity through the simple moments of everyday life. But the outside world has never stood still. As more young people leave the islands to study and work across Europe, and as more visitors arrive each year, the way of life that has united these communities for centuries is beginning to change. Can islands once protected by isolation preserve the soul of their culture in the face of that change? For many young people born in the Azores, the island's peaceful life is both a blessing and a limitation. As they reach adulthood, many leave for major cities on the mainland to continue their education, because not every career path or opportunity can be found across 9 small islands in the middle of the Atlantic. At first, life on the mainland opens the door to a completely different world. Busy avenues, modern hospitals, major universities, and endless career opportunities make home feel farther away with every passing year. But somewhere within that fast-paced life, many begin to miss something that's difficult to put into words. The Portuguese have a special word for that feeling. It's a longing, both comforting and heartbreaking, for a place left behind. A desire to return, paired with the knowledge that neither the place nor the person who left will ever be exactly the same again. Think about whether this feeling is familiar to you. Maybe not in relation to a volcanic island, but to a hometown, an old house, the place where your childhood happened. That same feeling of no longer being able to simply go back, because both you and the place have changed, and yet the longing for it never goes away. For the people of the Azores, this longing often begins with the smallest details. The scent of sea salt on the windows, church bells ringing across the hills, a road lined with basalt stone walls, or simply walking into a familiar restaurant and realizing the server still remembers your name. That longing has drawn many young islanders back to the Azores after years spent studying and working elsewhere. They don't come back because the islands offer more opportunities. They come back knowing that life here still comes with very real limitations. Specialized medical care remains concentrated on the larger islands. Imported goods are still expensive. A single storm can disrupt ferry service and flights. And beneath the peaceful green landscape, the forces hidden deep underground never truly settle. Coming home is not an easy choice. It's a balance between opportunity and belonging, between the speed of city life and waking up to the sound of wind sweeping across open pastures, between the convenience of the mainland and a community where neighbors still know each other by name, where children grow up surrounded by the sea, the volcanoes, and familiar roads. Not everyone who leaves the islands comes back, and not everyone who comes back stays forever. But that choice reveals something important. The Azores were never just the place where someone happened to be born. They are a place that keeps traveling with a person, even when they're thousands of kilometers away. The Azores are more than just a point on a map in the middle of the Atlantic. They are a place where people built a life out of what once seemed impossible. Volcanoes, towering cliffs, powerful storms, and the endless open ocean, all of it has shaped the way people live here. Perhaps that's why the true beauty of the Azores lies not only in its landscapes, but in the people who have carefully preserved and protected these islands for generations. Every island tells its own story, and every traveler leaves with their own unique memory. So what will stay with you the most? Was it the wild, untamed nature? The calm, unhurried way of life? Or maybe a particular story from this account? Share your thoughts. I would genuinely love to hear what stayed with you the most.